I've never met anybody who says, I really hope that this next year is way worse than last year. Last year was really good and I'm just feeling spoiled, so I hope it's downhill from here. No, of course not. Well, you're in luck because today we are starting a brand new series that is aimed at making sure your 2021 is better than your 2020. But before I dive in, I need your help with an upcoming installment in this series. So I want you to go right now to radius.church and you're gonna see a question prompting you right there. Anonymously put your answer to the question, I don't know if I deserve blank. I don't know if I deserve blank. You've had a dream, like I've had a dream, or you've had resolutions before and they haven't worked out. And maybe you are starting to think that it's just not in the cards for you. And I'm not talking about the silly stuff like a new car or a fat wallet. I'm talking about the real big stuff, the meaningful stuff. Like, I really hope that 2021 has this for me, but I don't know if I deserve a better marriage. I don't know if I deserve a clear sense of purpose, like some people seem to have. I don't know if I deserve to have inner peace, knowing what I know about myself and my past. I don't know if I deserve direction. I don't know, if I'm honest with myself down deep, I don't know if I deserve a sense of freedom. What is it that so many other people seem to have, but you just don't think you have coming to you? If you wouldn't mind, help us out. Put that in the question that you're prompted with at radius.church. Okay, let's dive in. I think that you and I have learned to live with some things that we don't need to anymore. Our bodies are really wonderful at adapting. If you wanted to lift 50 pounds, but right now you can only lift 10, you can start there. And then you add a little. And then you add a little. Until one day you become a person who can curl 50 pounds. But the truth is, most of us have adapted to carrying around weight that we don't need to anymore. You're carrying it now. You were carrying it all of last year. Heck, you were probably carrying this when you were a kid, and you've adapted to it. You move around just fine carrying it. Maybe you even move fast, but most people around you aren't calling it out because they don't even think you're weighed down, but you are being held back. In high school, I wanted to impress a girl on a first date. So rather than pick her up in my beat-up '88 Ford Ranger, I asked a friend to borrow his super fancy SUV. Now, I knew that this thing had a huge engine, but when I left his house, I was disappointed because I put the pedal down, but the thing was just sluggish off the line, and I thought that my date was gonna think I drove like a grandma, which I totally do, but that's not the point. When I got to her house, thankfully, I got out of the car and I noticed smoke coming out from under the rear of the car by the wheels. And that's when it hit me. I jumped back in the car and I finally disengaged the parking brake, which I'd been driving with for miles. And I don't know if you're a car person, but suffice it to say, that's really bad for automobiles. 2020 was a heavy year for us. But a lot of us, we brought weight into it. We brought weight into a really heavy year. And you might know exactly what this is. And right now, as I'm talking about it, you might have no clue because you have just learned to live with it. You are burdened, but you've just learned to call it normal. Well, guess what? I think it's time to disengage this. I think it's time to leave this thing behind. I think it's time to unload it. Let's move into this next year carrying a little less of what's been weighing us down and holding us back. It might seem really odd to us to look at the distant past when we're thinking about our future, but we only do this, especially in Radius, because honestly, there's just so much wisdom that is buried in the past, right? And today, I want to look at some of the incredible wisdom from Jesus. So if you have a Bible or you have an app with a Bible, I want you to find Luke's biography of Jesus, Luke chapter 6. And by the way, if you don't have a Bible with you, I highly recommend downloading an app called YouVersion that doesn't just have one Bible, it has all kinds of English translations of the Bible, so you can find one that you easily understand. It's got all kinds of other resources to nurture your spiritual life and answer questions that might be on your mind and in your heart right now. But however you get there, maybe you need to pause this video and get there, I want you to find Luke chapter 6. Let's start off in this part of Jesus' biography with something that seems like an absolute no-brainer. This is no-brainer advice for our future. And this is in Luke chapter 6, verse 39. Then Jesus gave the following illustration. Can one blind person lead another? Won't they both fall into a ditch? If the people you look to make sense of life are just as blind as you are, even if they sound like they can see, well, you might as well be blind. So the reason that Jesus is the center and the guiding force of everything that we're trying to do in Radius is that we just believe that Jesus sees something that we don't. He sees something that we can't without him. You know, I've read philosophers and spiritual giants before, and honestly, I have never found a source of ethics, wisdom, and logic more illuminating than the person of Jesus. But to see clearly in this year, you have to know why you didn't see more clearly before. And maybe part of it was the people that you were listening to. So then Jesus says, wait. Before you go on a witch hunt and before you point fingers at all the blind people that you're surrounded with, maybe you'd have better luck if you looked a lot closer. And he goes on to say in verse 41, why worry about a speck in your friend's eye that's blinding him? And you know the specks in your friend's eye. You could list them in alphabetical order. You know, that friend or that supervisor doesn't know how to lead this company. They can't seem to get their act together. She didn't train you well. That's why you got fired. How was I supposed to know the economy would go sideways? He betrayed me. I don't know my kids were going to be such buttheads. What was I supposed to do? We all know about the specks in everybody else's eye. Jesus goes on to say, why worry about a speck in your friend's eye when you have a log in your own? How can you think of saying, friend, hey, let me help you get rid of that speck in your eye when you can't see past the log in your own eye? Hypocrite. First, get rid of the log in your own eye, and then you will see well enough to deal with the speck in your friend's eye. I think the reason that we can't own what's really holding us back and weighing us down is because, let's face it, it's not all your fault, right? People do have specks in their eyes, but honestly, you're not going to be able to blame your way into a great 2021. And the help that you want to be for other people is still going to be impeded a little bit if you can't look as close as the obstruction in your own life. Now, I don't want you to hear at the beginning of this year that what you have to do only is just change your behavior. It's so much deeper than that. The results of 2021 are going to have so much more to do with what happens inside of you than how you behave outside. Listen to the words of Jesus as he follows up in verse 43. A good tree can't produce bad fruit, and a bad tree can't produce good fruit. A tree is identified by its fruit. Figs are never gathered from thorn bushes. Grapes are not picked from bramble bushes. And then here's this powerful revelation from what seems to be an obvious metaphor. A good person produces good things from the treasury of a good heart. Not playing the part, but from what's really going on underneath the surface. And an evil person produces evil things, no matter how hard they try to avoid it, from the treasury of an evil heart, a destructive heart, a greedy heart. What you say, Jesus says, flows from what is in your heart. Listen, I can keep up appearances as good as anybody, and we can probably keep up those appearances and perform for quite some time. You might be particularly good at it. But if that's all you got, performing, faking it until you're making it, impressing people, getting people to like you, it is just a matter of time before something leaks out. And I can almost guarantee you it is already damaging your closest relationships. You see, the real obstruction comes from the heart. You at the instinct level. The real obstruction is your jealousy, your shame, your fear, your insecurity, your unresolved mommy issues and daddy issues, your hopelessness, your rage, your guilt complex. And I'm not here to blame you, to point out the specks in your eyes. Blame is just not going to get deep enough. Behavior change is not going to get deep enough. You and I are still going to have something weighing on us that is blocking our vision. But if you start today by owning that your greatest impediment is buried really, really deep inside. It's not in the world around you or the people around you. If that's where you start, then you are going to get something that you really desperately want for your future. You are going to get clarity. Jesus said something so profound during one of the most famous speeches, maybe the most famous speech ever given. We call it the Sermon on the Mount, and here's an excerpt in Matthew's biography of Jesus, chapter 5, verse 8. Jesus said, "You're blessed when you get your inside world, your mind and your heart put right, and then you can see God in the outside world." Now, it's really tempting for me to just sum this all up by saying clear eyes, full hearts.
Clear eyes, full hearts. Let's go!
But I think that another way that we can say this is free heart, strong future. Free heart, strong future. Don't go into another year with a heavy heart. I know that sounds simple enough. It sounds easy enough. You feel like you should have already taken care of it by now, but you didn't. You're wondering why you don't feel unburdened in your life to the degree that you feel you should at this point. And I'll tell you, the reason that you still feel weighed down by something going on in your inside world is because getting rid of it, dropping that weight is hard. It's tough. It's scary. At times it might even feel humiliating, but it's time. Believe me, it is so worth it, because I promise you 2021 won't have any fewer surprises than 2020. Some might even strike closer to home for some of you. So why would you carry anything extra? Why would you obstruct your perspective in the slightest? Get these things out of your way so that you can see what God is up to in your life and in your world around you more clearly. If you want to have a different year than you did last year, then how about you try a different playbook? That's the wild thing. You don't even have to believe in Jesus to take advantage of his ideas. Jesus let people do this all the time. So I want to give you one thing to think that I got from Jesus and two things to do. One thing to think and a couple of things to do. This week, I want you to listen to your blame. Speck, 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 speck. I want you to listen to the words that come out of your mouth, and I want you to listen to those imaginary conversations that you and I all have with ourselves that blame somebody else and give you a pass when you can at the same time be expecting something far more vibrant this year. That right there, that little conversation, that blaming, that finger pointing that we all do all the time is evidence of something weighing us down and distorting our perspective. It could be that feeling that you are a loser and a failure, and that's why you feel like you have to turn your attention to other people's behavior. Maybe it's fear of being alone that gave you this, like another string of inadequate or dysfunctional relationships this year. Or maybe it's some sort of anger or rage or a pattern that you learned early on that has put you into the same familiar messes and conflicts this last year, that's given you that same load of regret this year. It could be that grudge that you've been carrying. You know, if they hurt me, then I'm gonna hurt them. And listen, if I endured the things that you have gone through and the way that some of those people treated you, I would be mad too. But maybe for you, if you're honest, you just can't seem to let it go. Maybe what's weighing you down is just this incredible envy that you have, and you're spending all of your time comparing your life to the life you think that you should have, or the life that you think somebody else has, than the life that you know you have. So just think about it. I just want you to think about the times that you point fingers or pay attention to other people's lives more than your own. And now, a couple things to do. For the next 4 weeks, we're gonna do the work of freeing up our inside world so that we're more agile for our outside one. I don't just want this for your 2021. I want this for your team. I want this for your business partner. I want this for your best friends. I want this for your marriage. I want this for your kids. I want this for your roommate. I want this for your small group. I want this for your church. So if you will choose to make sure you show up every single time we drop an installment of this series, that's the first choice to make. Maybe what you need to do is just subscribe and hit that little bell icon so that you never miss when we drop a new installment. That's the number one thing to choose to do. The second thing I want to invite you to choose to do is I want you to invite at least one friend that you know needs to deal with their inside world. You know, the friend that came to mind when you wanted to pretend that somebody else needed to hear this message more than you needed to hear it? Invite them to come and check this out. Because the truth is, we all have some extra baggage, some extra weight that we do not have to carry into this new year. But listen, you're not just being slowed down by a heavy heart. You were made to fly. And something that you have learned to live with isn't something that you can soar with. So let's let it go once and for all. Okay, thanks for being with us today. We really want to serve you. We want to help you. We want you to feel stronger. We want to help you have greater endurance for the life that you have to live this week. It is why we do all of this. So make sure you catch us next time, because next time we're going to talk about dropping one of the most debilitating things that is holding you down. So if you have been harmed, abused, fired, insulted, dumped, left out, misunderstood, it has left a mark on you. Of course it has. And you don't want to keep holding on to all of that. You don't have to. We're going to talk about dropping the burden of what other people owe you, dropping the anger and the resentment that you might feel. So if that's you, then you have to make sure you join us next time. If it's not you, then you definitely know somebody who is carrying around resentment and hurt and pain because of something someone has done to them. You can help them feel free of all of that this year by simply sharing this link on your social, or maybe just a quick text message to them. Like and subscribe to this channel. Hit that little bell icon so you don't miss anything. We love you. We'll see you soon.